Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ringsiders Wrestling. It's been a while since we've spoken to Jon Draper, but we've got him back and we're discussing all the events from the weekend, SummerSlam, the big returns, parts of TakeOver, and of course, the return of CM Punk to professional wrestling. So with no further ado, Jon, thanks for joining us.
Well, I am so happy to be back. I'm so happy that you are in my dungeon. Right now, I'm currently broadcasting we were supposed to have a hurricane here that got downgraded to a tropical storm. So I'm in the Northeast in the States, and I think we dodged a huge bullet. I was worried about even having power. So I'm just happy that I have electricity, let alone to be back on the show. But it's always a pleasure to be on here. This is one of the few shows I actually do. So
It means the world to us when you put
Really
out
does.
tweets or put us over on your podcast. It's like, you don't have to do that, but whenever you say like, oh, I'm just going to be speaking about this on Ringsiders, it still blows our mind that Jon Draper wants to discuss wrestling with us. So we appreciate you being here.
We get so excited about you coming on that I get more excited about reviewing the Big Four than actually the Big Four
Watching them.
themselves, because I'm going to get to talk to Jon for it's been like what, 3 months.
It's been a while. No, I think we haven't talked in a good while. I could tell by some of your hair length that it's been a while. Both of you.
It's been a while.
That's how I go. Like me, I'm stationary. I stayed the same. I don't really change all that much.
I'll just get a little grayer. I'm just getting a little
haven't-
gray these days. The old silver temples.
We haven't spoken in probably half a year, Jon, because I've been trying to big league you, but now that gimmick's over, here I am. I thought I'd show my face and speak to you about.
I know.
wrestling.
Well, I had to earn you. I had to earn the right to get you to come on.
That's
I had
it.
to earn
Yeah,
it. It's like it's like the Smith song. You just haven't earned it yet, baby.
Yeah,
And I had to earn it.
I'm like the Undertaker wrestling in Saudi Arabia. You have to really pull out the big guns to get me on. So,
Yeah, that's right. Well, this is going to be our Saudi Arabia podcast.
Jon, I was chatting to a girl last night, and she's 23 years old. No shame. I have no shame. At
Really?
41. Yeah.
Wow.
And she quoted Morrissey at me. So yeah.
That's
And
cool.
I
That gives me hope. I can't remember the last time I spoke to a 23-year-old, but it was definitely a while. Since the last I've seen you, I've turned 50. I got real glasses. I got new teeth. I'm performing again for the first time in 15 years in the fall. So I feel like that all happened because I went on Ringsiders. None of those things would have happened. had I not gone on
Well,
technically,
I like to credit myself with the return of synthetic.
Synthetic succeed, yeah.
So.
No one wants to take credit for the teeth. I don't know how maybe somebody.
No, I think they look good, man. They look good. Are these teeth screwed into your head or what? Or do they come?
No, they're made of like this really. It's like this. They told me what the thing is. It's like carbon. It's almost like carbon fiber. Like I'm not even making a joke. Like if I took them out, which I won't do because I need a career at some point. If I took them out, like if you held them in your hand, it's like holding a Q-tip. It's so light.
Far out.
They're like, yeah, it's like this material. But I could have got them permanently put in, but I chose not to. Just because it was like really expensive. Yeah. So, but yeah, everything seems to be going really well. My tinnitus is holding up. I'm a little worried about the performing. That's next is I got to get the voice ready to sing. So that's the next thing I got to do. So knock on wood. So hopefully that goes smoothly.
You've been a busy man, Jon. You've done a lot more than we have in that time. Like you said, you had a great 50th birthday. We saw all the pictures and stuff. Looked like you were having a great time.
Yeah. I don't know about great. It was interesting. I experimented a little bit for my 50th birthday. Well, because we had COVID, where I live in upstate New York in May, that was when there was like this glimmer of COVID ending happening in the States. So it was like, guess what? I got vaccinated, like, I think in between my birthday, my 50th birthday, I got my vaccinations and I was like, this is cool. But like we went away to Vermont, just me and my wife, who's a little bit younger than me, just a couple years younger. And she was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I just want to eat lunch like a normal person and get drunk during the day and maybe take some ecstasy and hang out. And she was like, that sounds perfect. And and I was in a hot tub drinking like Guinness and tripping on Molly and listening to the Smiths and
Jon, it was great.
It's the best. I swear to God. I mean, like I have friends turning 50, and a lot of them aren't having big parties because of COVID still. So they're like, oh, make a video and send it. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. I was like, but have you thought about taking a bunch of drugs and going in a hot tub and listening to music? Like, I mean, like, because these are things I just never do in my life. Like, I don't even eat regular meals. Like, normally at this time, like, if I showed you the clothes I'm wearing, I have like my workout clothes because after I get done, I got to go run 11 miles in a hurricane. And then I'll come home and eat a bunch of kale and take a shower. And like, and that's like, that's all I do is I exercise and I like I try not to die. That's at this point. I think 50
That's
is like,
I'm
try
getting
not
to
to
that
die.
stage now. I'm
Yeah.
working out a lot now. I'm eating super clean. I've gone
Yeah.
mainly vegetarian.
Oh,
But
it's great. It's great.
the other night I did smoke a marijuana, John. So
A whole
and it's
marijuana.
one
Yeah.
marijuana. It's been a while since I've smoked a hashish cigarette.
My
And
state, my state is now legal, so
yeah,
for personal use. So I'm a lot more. I'm not that I wouldn't have talked about it anyway, but I still have my Saturday night ritual. I have my edibles and my Guinness and my
mm,
black and tans, and then I was so fucked up that I was eating. I'm just gonna give you. I can't even repeat what I ate because you'll want to throw me off the show. But I ate like I was going to the electric chair because I was so inebriated. I had a bag of Hershey's dark chocolate chips, like the chocolate chips, and they're really, really good. So like a bag will last me like 2 weeks, so I'll have a few at night, and then I'll like go to sleep. So I had like the remaining bag, and I was trying to watch Cocaine Cowboys. Have you ever heard of Cocaine Cowboys?
yeah, the
No.
TV show on Netflix.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's fascinating. They just put a new season out of Miami, how Miami became this
Is
like
it a
drug.
dramatization or is it a documentary?
No, it's a documentary, and it's
Documentary,
made
yeah,
very well.
yeah.
And so I highly recommend. It's fascinating stuff, just unreal. So I'm watching. I'm stoned. Meanwhile, like my kids have friends over. My wife's working 16-hour shifts in the hospital, and I'm eating them like this. Like I'm just like I'm missing my mouth, right? And as I miss my mouth, they're falling into the sofa and melting into my crotch. But I don't know this is happening. I have white shorts on, like sweat shorts on. And my wife comes home, gets ready to go to sleep to go work another 16-hour day. And as I go in the bedroom to say goodnight to her, she was like, "What did you do to yourself?" Starts screaming at me. And I'm like, too fucked up. And I'm like, "Whoa, what's the matter?" She was like, "Look at your clothes." And I look down and all the chips have melted. Like it was if I pooped out of my crotch.
Yeah.
And she was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was just like, I don't think I could answer that right now. Like, I don't really.
I
So
love
then, like, I'm in my pajamas scrubbing chocolate out of the crotch of my clothes. And one of my kids comes downstairs and just looks at me. And I'm like, I spilled chocolate. Like, I'm trying not to look like I'm fucked up, like, because I have like teenagers and I don't want them to see them fucked up. And they were just like, "How did you do that?" And my kid was like, "Wait, do you know what you did? You didn't drop it just on your crotch. You sat on it too. It's in your back." And then I turn around. It's like, it was just, I should have took a picture of it. It was just so funny. But I mean, yeah, that's 50. That's, I don't go out. I don't have like a very active social life, but I exercise and I take a lot of edibles on Saturday nights. And then I spill food on my clothes.
You're living a great life, John. It's infinitely more exciting than mine.
I
So,
can't wait. Only another 8 years and 4 months for me, and I'm there.
Well,
So there
not,
we go.
well, yeah, well, hold on. Wait, Callum, how old are you?
32.
You're 32. Oh, you got 18 years before you
Amazing.
get to
Yeah.
this point.
He's a
Wow.
he's a whippersnapper.
Yeah, I guess I always feel like I'm quite old, but if life starts at 50, like it clearly does for you, John, then I've got a lot to look forward to, I guess.
Well, I think for me, it really started at 40. Like I was obese. I was a heavy smoker. I was a heavy drinker. I worked a stressful Wall Street job, like 14 hours a day. It was just not a great existence. You always feel like something's wrong with you. Like when you're like 300 pounds, well, I was like 280 pounds and like smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, there's always something wrong with you. Something always hurts. Like, oh, my chest always hurts. Oh, my legs always hurt. Oh, my back always hurts. Oh, I'm always coughing. And it was just like, I got so tired of always feeling like that. And then like within a year, it was just like, you have like, you have like a 40-inch waist, which is like obese. And then it's like, oh, now you have a 38-inch waist. Now you have a 36-inch waist. Now you have a 34-inch waist. Now you have a 33. And it's like, now I buy jeans on like 31s. And I'm just like, their waist is so small. And I'm like, wow, this is cool, right? Like, it's an accomplishment. Like I I saved some of my older big clothes, and sometimes I do that thing where I put the big pants down, I put the little pants in front of them. They look like nesting dolls, like
Yeah,
Russian nesting
yeah.
dolls. Um, and I had like a 19-inch neck or a 21-inch neck. Like I couldn't wear regular button shirts, and I used to have to wear ties, so I had to get like big and tall collar shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it's so gross. You know what I mean? It's just like you don't have to, and it was just from being lazy and being gluttonous. Like I'm starving. I would love to not go out and run, but I'm going to put on some cool music. I'm going to listen to some podcasts. And then when I come back, I'm going to smell like a homeless person on a subway. But, I'll feel better. And I'll eat my vegetables and I'll look forward to eating some food later on. And it's a tough schedule. Like it's a vegan before six schedule with like a 2.5 hour exercise regimen. I mean, who the hell does that like at 50 years old unless they're getting paid for it or something?
Yeah.
But I'm trying.
Probably
I've been
in
a
better
little slack. Oh, sorry, Callum, go ahead.
I was going to say, probably in better shape than some actual wrestlers who are 50. Like,
Well, yeah, they've had harder lives. I think
subject.
I think it's the addictions. I honestly do. I think it's
so?
these addictions for all of us. I don't, I think it's, a 50-year-old wrestler at this point has probably been taking painkillers for 30 years.
Yeah.
How are you going to stop that?
You don't. You're doing it for life at that point because your body's always going to hurt after wrestling for 30 years.
Yeah.
You're going to keep taking painkillers. You're probably always going to be addicted, and that is unfortunately true.
Yeah, it's a tough life. I have a friend who's a sanitation worker, but he got the gig late in life, in his late 30s, almost 40. He's 50. He just had to have both his knees replaced. And he's had back surgery. This is from being a bulky sanitation worker, which is a very hard job. It's a very good job. It's a great job for your future, for your pension and your family and your health benefits. But who could you do that for 30 years? Could you be a sanitation guy for 30 years and get on a truck and shovel snow and 100-degree weather and deal with dead dogs in garbage bins in Brooklyn? It's just like, no, I couldn't do that.
I'll be honest, I couldn't do any job for 30 years.
I
know for a fact that the way my brain works, I'd get bored of a job after 2 years. I can't. I have mad respect for people who do jobs for anything over 5 years, because to me that's time. I need to be constantly changing jobs because I just get bored.
Well, you know what that might be for you? That might be that you just haven't found the thing that you want to do for 30 years. Honestly, I mean, that's really that's true.
Yeah.
That's how I would approach that 100%. There's probably something that you don't even know how much you're going to love it until you actually do it. And then when you do it, you could be like, I see this forever.
That's the positivity I needed today, John. Thank you.
Well, that's what I'm here for. I talk about drugs and being fat and then, and fake teeth. And
I still haven't found like my little groove yet. And like, if we're talking about dream jobs, then obviously musician or illustration. But like, as far as like the day job goes, I don't know. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I should be chasing those things instead of looking for the perfect day job.
Yeah. My wife, you guys have talked about this guy privately. My wife is a hospital nurse, and COVID kind of made her realize that this is not what she wants to do.
Right.
If it wasn't for COVID, she would have been like, yeah, I love being a nurse. And that's that she hates it, but she was just like, I don't have another pandemic in me.
Yeah.
I don't have that in me. Like,
so this last year, something like fundamentally changed in her then, like working that job.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Can you imagine? I mean, we could all imagine working in healthcare, any doctor or anybody in that direct line, EMS or emergency services or, anything related to that. You got to be like, I don't know that I want to do that, because if this happens again, I don't know that I could do this again. We're still reeling from this with my wife. It's 18 months and more at this point, and she just resigned actually, and she's going to go into more like private stuff, to more like traveling nursing and things like that, where you make more money but you don't have the home base. So, but yeah, I don't think I mean, as a 50-year-old person that interacts with a lot of young people on a regular basis, whether it's through music or wrestling or podcasting or like, just doing cool shit. It's, I think it's important to at one point just find there is something that you love that you don't know. There is something so important to you that you have no idea how important it is until you do it. And once you get that realization and you sort of submit to it and go, I love this so much. I don't think there's anything like I feel fulfilled, and that could be a person, that could be a sandwich. That could be a TV show, but I'm saying, but there is a job, there is a vocation for you. There is a place. There's a place for everybody. Don't believe it. The hype. There's a place for everyone in this world. Has a place, has a community, has a job, has a person. You just gotta find it. It's a big world, and you're not gonna find it in these small pockets of agreeing with people all the time. Whether that makes you feel safe. I got my oldest daughter in a week is leaving to go away to college. So it's a very traumatic time for us. And she was shy beyond words. And she's still very shy at 18. But once she sort of came out with as a lesbian, when she sort of came out and was more public about that as a teenager, I noticed it changed her behavior to the point where she was more comfortable with everything else.
Right.
Because once you get past that, it's kind of everything else is kind of easy. And
I get you.
Not that I'm saying that we all need to, there's a lot of people that can't come out. There's a lot of people that for very specific reasons that are terrible and sad and tragic, and we have to be sensitive to that. But I'm saying once you kind of confront this crappiness, or you find the thing that you like she found that was the thing that was making her shy and insecure as a teenager. And now that she's going to a college where no one really gives a shit about any of that at all, at all, no one could care less, especially the college she's going to. She's so excited and comfortable to go. It's not a fear, it's excitement, and to see her go from being this secluded, shy kid with no friends and really introvert and lying all the time to being this let's do this. And she's all fired up to go to college, and she's a wise ass now. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's because she's absolutely confident in who she is. And, there's no doubt about, like you said, as soon as she came out, she was more out there and was able to be herself completely and accepted. And I think that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah. And of course, she's lucky that she had people like us. You know what I mean? I don't know what that world is. Not everybody has that.
The coolest dad in the world, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, well, not everybody like my wife and my in-laws and her cousins and her sister. It's not everybody has that, and it's you got to recognize that too. That maybe that person is suffering like this because the people around them suck so bad, or they may not realize that they suck. It's I would hate to think in 20 years my kids would be you weren't really that great. You were kind of good, but you weren't. You could have been better. I want them in 20 years to be you were fucking amazing. You made my life incredible. It's the opposite of what my wife and my life were like growing up in every way.
You know what I love about getting you on, John? Every time, usually when it's Jamie and River speaking to you, I'll still watch it, obviously. You always drop these little life nuggets. We've been speaking for about 20 minutes now, but it's become an inspiration podcast.
I'm so sorry.
I love it. These golden nuggets.
I'm sorry. I just can't help it. No, but but we have so much in common, yet we have so many things different, and it's just I would hate the thought of not listening to somebody because they're older or because I don't like their style or something like that, when I could learn something from that person. Or even somebody younger seems so dumb. It's dumb to not learn.
I feel that way that I can listen and learn stuff from. Like I said, I was talking to that 23-year-old last night, and she started quoting Morrissey at me, and I'm just holy shit, there are,
right. Now in your mind, you would have thought oh, she probably likes, Halsey or something, which she might, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's I make a lot of jokes. Me and my wife kind of don't do this that much anymore, but we used to talk about how teenagers suck all the time, with other people, oh, teenagers are the fucking worst. And it's well, I mean, they are, but sometimes it's kind of our fault that they suck, right? I mean, aren't we kind of driving the ship? If your kid sucks, there's a pretty good chance your kid sucks because you suck, because you're not doing a good job. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know what it is, man. I don't know if it's just, I feel I never really had anybody talk to me honestly when I was a young person about anything. No one supported the hardcore music I liked. No one supported the comic books, the horror movies. No one, I was trying to be an actor, and you know, there was like this whole stigma, like if you're a man trying to be an actor, you're probably gay, right? And like, you know, are you in the closet? And it's just like, well, no, I'm just, I want to perform. I want to sing and I want to act. And I like, you know, like I grew up with that fog, that haze over you, and forget about wrestling. It was like, oh, if you liked wrestling and you like comic books and you want to sing and act. Whoa.
I had that same issue. Big fan of comic books, loved wrestling all my life pretty much. And I went to theatre classes when I was younger.
Me too.
And when I was there, that same stigma was there that most people who do acting classes must be gay.
Of course, yeah.
I was like, that's.
Can you imagine in the 80s? Can you imagine the early 80s what that was like?
I can imagine it so much worse. Like, and it's offensive on both sides. Like to
yeah, it really is.
Offensive to gay people too. To you know,
I had like crazy. My dad is awesome, but he always wanted the best for me. But he always kind of downplayed my creative pursuits and stuff. Like I wanted to draw comic books when I was a kid. You know, I wanted to be an artist, and like he was always like, "Well, that's not really a real job."
Sure.
He had my best intentions in mind, but it's somewhat kind of quelled. I mean, I probably could. What I'm doing now with the illustrations, I should have been doing this 20 years ago. I should have been chasing this 20 years ago and like really like going for it. But but I don't know. It's just so it's weird. So yeah, when we're going back to the kids, you do right to really just inspire them and encourage them in anything, even if you think it's fucking dumb. Just encourage them anyway. And
because what might be dumb to you.
Exactly.
To somebody else. And, I think it's funny being live long enough to see the things that everyone made fun of me for liking become so popular. Like, you got to understand how bizarre it is. And I talked about this. I know we're going to talk about it at great length, but the CM Punk thing, to me, like, I watched that very differently than a wrestling fan watched that. I watched that as somebody from the New York hardcore scene who knows who this guy, who knows that this is this guy's passion. Yeah. And who knows he likes comic books and horror movies and grew up, he's about 8 years younger than me, but like who grew up in a very similar environment where, I'm just, if you're like a punk or a metalhead or a hardcore guy or whatever, people just called you an FAG, as that's what you were, because all the cool kids and the jocks and the Guidos and the, like, that was their word. That's how they addressed you, as everything, and like to see this guy now, like, just take over like the internet for the night and social media and TV, and just, he's a hardcore guy from Chicago. I mean, who likes comic books and horror movies.
He likes the same things you do. He's now a mainstream star, and he's stayed true to that. He writes comic books now.
And horror movies, and has been in horror movies.
And how popular, well, I say popular comics are now. The comic industry is kind of on its arse at the moment, but like it's bled over into the movies now, and everybody goes to comic cons and cosplay and stuff like that. That wasn't anywhere around me in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
I collected comic books for 4 years, from 1989 right through to 2012. And just got the piss taken out of me all the time, like, for being a teenager, like, why are you reading comics? Like, what are you, like, why are you reading, I'm just like, fuck it.
Yeah, it's funny, punk that punk moment to me, it really, like, it just felt very different. Like, I wasn't prepared for how that was going to impact me. Like, just look, and it's like, I'm just like, wow, it's like, I remember when I was too drunk to meet him in 2012. My kid brother, Mark, brought it up to me last week. He was on stage at the Black and Blue Bowl in New York City. It was a tribute to a singer who had passed away in a band called Warzone many years earlier. And he was there, and he was on stage with all of these people. And I'm hammered out of my brain. My kid brother was singing at this show, and I was on the stage, and my kid brother was like, "Yeah, it's the WWE champs right over there or whatever." And I was like, fuck out of it. And I just couldn't even identify CM Punk because he looked like everybody else.
Right.
Yeah. He looked like every hardcore guy who had hair, like, who's not that tall, but not that short, and who's not fat, and who's not, like, he just covered in tattoos, and he's got a good looking woman with him. And like, it's like, that's 80 people here. Like,
how regular hardcore kid.
Yeah. He looked like a hardcore guy, like a lifer hardcore guy, because that's who he is. And it's just like, to me, it's like, wow, it's like, I never, like, in a way, he's probably the most famous person from the hardcore scene ever. Like, I don't know. There's like people like in the pop world that kind of dip their toe in it, and there's a couple of actors that kind of dip their toe in it and stuff like that. but he didn't dip his toe. That's his identity. He's the straight edge wrestler. I mean, like he's
changed.
Yeah, he brought that into the game, and like
Yeah.
he didn't just dip his toe in it. He dipped his whole fucking body in it, and he's still dipping his body. He still goes to shows. Like, and people who don't even like wrestling, I posted that. Well, like, I totally have seen that guy at shows, and I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, like he's the real guy. Like he's the real thing. And I'm not even the super biggest Punk fan. I just identify the importance of that. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's really cool. Did you guys ever see that video a bunch of years ago when Seth Rollins kind of became really famous and he was at like one of those like new metal type band shows, moshing and singing?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It was like A Day to Remember or something. It was like one of those kind of weird bands.
Yeah.
And he's in the crowd like singing and dancing and everything by himself.
Yeah.
By himself. And he's the fucking WWE champion.
I love that because it shows he's just not lost track of who he is, really. He'll still go to these shows. He'll still go to, some people.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm not going anymore. I'm too famous for this. He didn't give a shit.
Yeah. I don't know the band. It's not a band I like or list. It's it's one of these like younger metal bands with like too many letters and then too many words in the name. But like, but he's like singing the lyrics and pointing and doing all the fan shit. And I'm like,
he's in the zone.
Fucking WWE champion. This guy's making millions. He's on TV like 10 hours a week, making millions of dollars.
Being the band and seeing Seth Rollins just crashing in the crowd.
Oh, it's insane. I was at a Bad Brains show in the late 80s and Living Color. This all goes back to Punk. So Cult of Personality was on the air. This was like 88 maybe. And they were huge. Living Color was the biggest. They were going to win. I think they won a Grammy for Best New Artist. Cult of Personality, and they had Open Letter to a Landlord, so they were a big rock band at the time. So the Bad Brains are playing this big club in Brooklyn. I'm a huge Bad Brains fan, and I'm at the show, and I'm like 17, 18, moshing to the Bad Brains and everything. And there's this guy with dreads who's really short who's doing flips in the crowd, just flipping. He's like going onto stage and then somersaulting into the crowd. And it's Corey Glover from Living Color, who might actually have one of the biggest albums in the world at this time. They might actually be like one of the biggest rock groups in the world at this point in time. And he's by himself and he's singing to the Bad Brains and moshing and crowd surfing with like and I was just like, and to see that at like 17, like, wow, like my jaw, and there's no internet or any of that shit. Yeah. So it's like my jaw dropped. So what we all did was when it was Corey Glover, because we all liked Living Color, we would like try to go mosh near where he was moshing so that we would be closer to Corey Glover. Like, I'm not making any of this up. And I remember like, me and my kid brother Mike and a couple of people were like, he's gonna crowd surf. We got to get over there to make sure we catch him and all this stuff. Like, it was so fucking funny. I don't know. It was weird. It's weird. I don't have too many memories like that of like famous people coming down to my level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I get
but wrestlers seem to do that, don't they? And athletes kind of do that sometimes, and we all remember when they do.
You mentioned the crowd surfing and stuff, and that's exactly what CM Punk did when he came back.
Yeah. That was cool.
And I tell you what, we'll discuss CM Punk first, I think, because we've
got
a 10-minute notification for our recording time stops in 10 minutes. So what we'll do is we'll go for a short commercial break. I'll call you back, John, and then we'll start again talking about CM Punk.
Okay.
So, CM Punk right after this.
So, like I said before that commercial break, CM Punk returned on Rampage. So, second episode of Rampage. First week, it did good numbers. We had some big main events. Christian won the Impact Championship. Second week, arguably one of the biggest moments in wrestling history. Well, in the last decade, for sure. CM Punk returned after a 7-year hiatus. How do you think it's changed the landscape of pro wrestling? I mean, what did you feel when he came back?
Well, like I was saying, I mean, for me, it wasn't even so much about the wrestling because he hasn't, I want to see him work. I know he's a good worker and he always has decent matches, if not great matches sometimes, but it's a big deal. It's anybody that, was sort of on the fence about whether or not this was going to be big. It's huge. It's big. It's bigger than we probably even thought it was going to be. Yeah. I don't know what the numbers are. We're going to find out the numbers today in terms of the ratings. So that's interesting.
Can't wait to see.
I'm very curious. I said 1.5 million. I'm probably a little wrong on that, but maybe let's see. I'm not really big on ratings.
I
hope
really
it's
do think
huge.
you might be right. I think the first episode was it 900?
Yeah, it was a little under 1 mil. I think it was rough.
Which is great for a first episode.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a great moment. I was texting with my brother-in-law, and I just couldn't believe it. It was just shocking. I'm more curious to see what he's going to do Wednesday. I think that's actually a bigger story when they have more time, when they have when it's getting closer to him actually being in the ring. And, Wednesday is their staple show. So that's their big show. So, but yeah, huge moment. I'm excited to see how this impacts the business. I think it's going to have a huge impact on the business, but I also think, there's a lot of people kind of burying their heads in the sand, acting like, well, it's not that big a deal. It's like, it's childish. I know he rubs people the wrong way. I get that some people really just don't like him a lot.
Well,
but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the impact of him as a character.
Objectively, it's a big return. Even if you don't like him, it's a big return. Yeah.
People always, I keep hearing things on Twitter that people saying that he's not a draw. But for me, I can only talk from my point of view. I dropped out of wrestling around 2005, and CM Punk brought me back into wrestling. So when he returned last night the other night after 7 years, like I've got quite emotional. I was feeling quite teary eyed because I was just like, yes, this is my guy.
Yeah.
So I do, and I bought his T-shirt, all that kind of stuff. So I would say that he is a draw because he got me, a lapsed fan, back into it.
Yeah.
After nearly 6 years. So.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I got very emotional watching it because he was the first indie wrestler I ever discovered. Before that, it was only WWE. I was just a naive kid who only watched. I maybe watched a bit of WCW, but only briefly. Then it was just WWE for me, and up until about 2003, and I discovered Ring of Honor. But it was because of CM Punk that I discovered Ring of Honor. Wow. And I was like, wow, there's wrestling outside of WWE. That's crazy. And then I followed CM Punk, and since then he's just been one of my guys. And when he left, I was sad but happy for him. And I said, if ever he returns, I only want it to be because he's happy.
Right.
And I thought if he ever returned and he didn't want to, we wouldn't be getting CM Punk. It wouldn't be worth him coming back. He'd have to be happy. And when he came back, he looked so happy.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me. I just felt so good for him. I think we're in for a hell of a ride with it because, like he said, he left pro wrestling in 2005. He's not counting his career in WWE as his pro wrestling career. Yeah. Well, that says a lot.
This is going to be an instance where I'm okay with the bitterness because of what happened to him. Yeah. He's not. I wasn't okay with guys leaving like huge contracts and then getting fired and then being like, it was a prison.
Yeah.
It's like, no, CM Punk, was the hot guy, carried the company on his back. They kind of fucked him up a little bit, and then they fired him like in a very shitty way. And, when he was hurt, they didn't take care of him. So, yeah, you could be bitter about stuff like that. I think that's different than the bitter brigade of some D-squad, guy that never made it to the mid-card, who then now goes there and be like, it's so much better here. It's like, it's so much. I felt like I was in prison when I was getting paid to sit in the back and eat catering and tweet. That felt like prison to me. It's like, that's not what CM Punk's, we already know the story. We heard the podcast 100 times, we know what happened. He talked about it in detail, and he actually sort of changed wrestling podcasting by doing that in a lot of ways too. Shit. Let's be honest. When he went on Cabana's podcast, all of a sudden people probably that never listened to a podcast for the first time.
Yeah.
And he's not getting credit for that at all, which I think is something we should give him credit for. And as far as the UFC stuff goes, which people like to point out, the fact that he even was able to get the UFC contract, forget about his performance, is a milestone, and he trained and he just wasn't very good.
Right. Yeah. Two things. First of all, he had a goal in mind and he did it. Respect to him for doing that. Doesn't matter if he got his ass kicked. And two, he was in there with some really good athletes.
Yeah, Mickey Gall, that first guy.
Mickey Gall is a wrestler. and he would kill any of us.
Oh yeah.
So I don't doubt that in a fight, CM Punk would murder me. You know, he's
I don't
probably
know.
a really tough dude.
He looked a little skinny, but I remember my brother-in-law was like, I'm so happy to see him happy. I go, he looks a little skinny, and my brother-in-law sent me like the laughing face. I go, I'm just saying he looked a little thin. I'm just saying he looked a little skinny. That's all. Like I'm not criticizing him. I'm just look, he's accomplished his dreams. I mean, like I there's two things that I think you guys will agree with me on. That there's two things that happens when someone publicly accomplishes their dreams. There's two things that happen in the public. One is people like us, and I'm going to throw us in this category, look at that and go, wow, that's inspiring.
Yeah.
That's got to feel amazing. I wonder what that must feel like, the joy that must bring. I hope I get some piece of that in my life one day. And then there's the other half of our society that goes, fuck that guy. Fuck him. I don't care. He sucks. Fuck his dreams. His dreams are stupid. Like, because we live, we're surrounded by people where that's their norm, where other people's success is their misery and other people's misery is their success. So I think if you're going to have a role model, you could probably do better than CM Punk in a lot of respects. But if you want to talk about guys that like fringe, uncool things that he made cool, so that other people, I'm telling you, there are probably a lot of people that are going to come out of, maybe they're not out right now, but they're going to come out of this a new generation, and they're going to be like, man, like I saw CM Punk left and came back, and I was like 19 and he was 42, and he's talking to me like I feel like he's talking to me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but when I was 19, I didn't feel like any 42-year-olds were talking to me.
No,
not
ever.
A chance. Ever
No.
About anything. I don't think anybody in their 40s gave a flying fuck about my hopes, my dreams, my likes, my dislikes, my feelings, let alone my feelings. So I think Punk is an inspiring guy. He's also an infuriating guy to a lot of people. But look, the needle is moved. It's changed. It's going to change now. Everything's going to change. Would be nice to circle back in 6 months and see what actually has happened. That would be what I would say. I don't think wrestling's going to change all that much. I think people who are on the fence, like Rivers was in 05, and like where I was many times in this lifetime of wrestling, certainly in the last with COVID, I think a lot of people are going to go, kind of want to see that. Oh, he's fighting. I'm paying. Like first thing I said to my brother-in-law was like, I guess I'm paying for that pay-per-view in September, Because I don't want to miss that.
Yeah, I'm not going to miss it. Absolutely.
How am I going to not watch CM Punk?
Yeah.
That's the difference, right? A lot of people think moving the needle just means TV ratings. It's not. It's pay-per-view buys too. If you're a pay-per-view
and YouTube views and social
and merch and merch.
Yeah.
How many people do you think bought a wrestling shirt for the first time in a long time Friday night, guys?
He crashed the Pro Wrestling Tees website and the
AEW site
t-shirts. So.
Yeah.
AEW site's crashed as well.
I like the shirt better in white, actually. I don't know. I think the shirt looks cool. I know they're only releasing it in white right now. I think the shirt looks cooler in white. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a big deal. It's good for business. There's not a lot of things really good for business. That's good for business. Let's encourage this. If Daniel Bryan comes out in a couple weeks, holy fucking shit. I mean, we're gonna be like, oh, my brain is on fire. Like, what is gonna happen now? By the way, I think Daniel Bryan is gonna, if he ends up in AEW for sure, I have a feeling he's gonna do a thing with MJF. Just don't quote me on this. I had a long talk with somebody behind the scenes, and they thought it was interesting that like they will keep MJF away from Punk. And they were like, well, because really Daniel Bryan would be a better fit for MJF.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. People lose their fucking minds watching. Can you imagine the promos MJF is going to cut on Daniel Bryan? If that's true, by the way, I'm not saying so. Well, can you imagine MJF cutting promos on Daniel Bryan?
You know why that would work so well? We know it would work well because we've seen Daniel Bryan against someone similar to MJF in The Miz. When The Miz was doing his best heel work on SmackDown, it was this rich, pompous asshole getting his ass kicked by the best technical wrestler in the world. And MJF is The Miz as a heel, but amplified even more. And I think more in tune with his character. So imagine how good that would be.
Oh my God.
I'd love to see that.
And how satisfying would it be, like, Daniel Bryan putting that yes lock on and him tapping out and like
that would be the first time, and that's the first time ever, and he taps out to Daniel Bryan in front of like a huge arena of people. Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is, I could see Daniel Bryan just stand there, be like, "Look, I got to be honest with you, you're just not that good. I've watched you.
Has MJF lost? Has MJF? Has he lost yet? MJF?
He's been pinned once.
Right. Okay.
Once. once.
Right.
But I can imagine Daniel Bryan just be like, yeah, I think you're very talented. I think you've got a lot going for you. But to be honest, I don't think you're that good.
Yeah,
I just really don't think you're that good. And like the MJF like fuming, like, you could see it. Like it's so the obviousness of it. Like, not that good. What the fuck? You like, I'm freaking out. Like, are you serious?
It could be a backstage segment. All they interact, and Daniel Bryan, like you said, just goes, "You're just not that good.
You're just not that good."
And that eats MJF's mind and his psyche for weeks.
Oh, it would be amazing. It would be incredible.
Yeah.
Whereas Punk is going to do this thing with Darby. He's going to be like, yeah, I think you're like me. I think you're a lot like me. I think we got a lot in common. And let's see how good you are. Like, that's it. Like, okay, that works. That's a storyline.
Yeah.
But the Daniel Bryan low key coming out, like, crowd going crazy, superstar guy, just being like, so your top guy here, that everybody says is so good. He's not that good. Like, you know what I mean?
I
It'd be awesome.
More than that feud now.
Oh, let's hope. I mean, that's what this was a conversation with somebody who's not attached to this in any way, but they said there's probably a deliberate plan because Daniel Bryan is so legit and and it's been consistently the technical guy or the whatever, and like, that would work. And plus, that keeps the Dream stuff away from the Kennys, and it keeps that at bay for a while.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do that for a long time.
Yeah.
Kenny Punk or Kenny Daniel Bryan, that's got to be a long time. You don't get that, right? You don't walk in a restaurant and get served the steak as soon as you sit at the table. You know what I mean?
And that's what AEW is good at. I'll give them credit.
They could do it. They could do it.
Guys, and they'll make them wait, and they'll build them up ready for the shot. Whereas TNA, for example, their downfall was somebody gets released, they bring them in, they feud with Jeff Jarrett, they win the title, Jarrett gets it back, rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat, exactly. You're so true. You hit it on the head. I mean, in the same token, now we have Adam Cole, who's a free agent, which we were all finding out today. He did not resign, but that doesn't mean that he's not. That just means he can go wherever he wants.
There's whispers of Bray Wyatt going over there as well.
There's whispers of Bray, which have been kind of soft. How could you not be excited about this stuff? How honestly, that's my thing is like how I just question, and I'm the most pessimistic fucking person in wrestling podcasting possibly ever. So it's just like, and if I'm sitting there going, this landscape looks very good to me. Like I'm thinking about the future. I'm a forward-thinking person.
I'm curious to see where it's going to be in 2 years, where WWE and like AEW are going to lie. In particular in America, I don't think AEW are ever going to beat WWE, but I think in America, I think they could really, in the next 2 to 5 years, I really reckon they could,
I had 2 people send me a text Friday night, and I was a little drunk, but 2 people sent me a text and said, "Why didn't we go to Chicago?" 2 separate people. And I was like, I would have went to Chicago. I would have went to this. I was like, if I could have pulled some strings, I might have been able to pull a couple strings. Maybe got us, and of course you find out the tickets were like $5, for the shit seats. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, wow, I don't know why I didn't go see that. And I think that's going to be the thing now too. You got people like, wait a minute, CM Punk is fighting in my town. I want to go see that. I haven't seen CM Punk since he fought the Shield in 2012. So that's I'm excited about it. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if any of this is going to happen, but the possibilities in that world are limitless almost to a certain degree. The possibilities on Mondays and Friday nights, not so much.
Not so much. So you're not excited about a possible rematch between Bobby Lashley and Goldberg? Saudi Arabia. Huh?
I'll say this. I know we're going to jump into it, but I mean, we might as well just get there. So I will say this about SummerSlam.
Yeah.
What I watched it in the middle of the night. I woke up, I came down, and I woke up and I watched SummerSlam before my wife went to work. I watched it like 2:30 in the morning to like 4:30 in the morning, whatever. And it wasn't terrible. What it felt like to me, the majority of the show, is what a good episode of SmackDown or Raw would be like. I feel, and this is just like my opinion, I feel now the bar is so low that we have now escalated what should have been an expectation every week when we watch these shows of them being good to decent. That never happens on the TV shows. So when it happens on a pay-per-view, we're more empathetic about it. We're like, well, it was kind of like, because I feel like I'm watching this.
Or if we get too good,
we've lowered the bar. The bar is so low, and it's like I remember halfway through the card, and we haven't gotten to the big matches yet for the most part. I'm thinking, this feel outside of the giant crowd, which was amazing. Crowd was amazing. not enough is being said about the crowd. The crowd was fucking in everything. They seemed like they gave a shit. They were a big crowd. Haven't seen that. When was the last time we saw that? We haven't seen that in a very long time on TV.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see. And I was, now it did seem like the crowd, I don't know how much of that was manufactured for the pay-per-view in terms of the audible stuff, but people seemed like they were happy to fucking be there and they were like into it. But I will say that I cannot understand this mentality now where the pay-per-views are now a good episode of Raw or a good episode of SmackDown, instead of the pay-per-views are supposed to be the next level of everything we get for free during the week that we follow episodically.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It would be the equivalent of like, say, like Breaking Bad. Like, remember in Breaking Bad, the TV show, if you watched it, and then they made like their movie version of it, and it was okay. It wasn't great.
I didn't.
It was like, it wasn't really. It's not really the Blue Caprice, whatever they call it, Blue Malibu, whatever the fuck they call it. And I'm like, well, it's like, if they made a movie version of The Walking Dead, a 2-hour like spinoff or The Walking Dead. Like, the idea is that it's so good that we got to put it in this other venue. We got to put it in this other avenue. That's not what WWE pay-per-views are. WWE pay-per-views are literally just Raw Juniors or like, or SmackDown Lights, and I think SmackDown has been consistently better than Raw, but Raw is consistently terrible.
Yes.
Raw is a terrible wrestling program.
It's a low bar. Like, saying SmackDown's better than Raw is like, well,
much better.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course,
that's like saying I'm so glad I have a doctor's appointment, not a dentist's appointment.
Yeah.
I'm getting a colonoscopy, not a deep-rooted cleaning. Like, but these things, but the bar, we're conditioned now. The bar is that low. So my takeaway from the Saturday, I watched it Sunday, but my takeaway from watching it was, I was at the first SummerSlam, I was there. I was at Nassau Coliseum, the first one. I was at the SummerSlam where Austin won when he had the stinger and he was paralyzed, and we all thought maybe he was dead or something, and they had to roll him over to pin Owen.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and then the main event with where Brett hits Undertaker with a chair, or Shawn hits Undertaker and Brett gets to pin him. Like, I'm at these things. I remember these things. These are monumental things to remember and crowd wise. Other than Becky, which really is okay, Becky and Brock as a babyface. I mean, what was the highlights for the SummerSlam really? What was the highlight match wise?
There was two good matches, right? And that was Seth Rollins and Edge.
That was great. Yeah,
that was a good match. Yeah.
And then what was the other one?
I thought Cena. I didn't hate the Cena match.
Sorry, yeah.
I thought Cena and Roman was good.
I thought it was a little slow to get going, but then once it hit its
stride,
long.
Yeah. I think they both were a little too long, personally.
Outside of that, though,
they worked out very well. It took a while to get going, but once it did hit that gear, the next gear, it was brilliant. And I love the finish. The fact that Roman did exactly what he said he was going to do. He put his career on the line. He was that confident he was going to win, and then he still beat Cena clean. That's what I love.
And he was kicking out of everything, like Roman Reigns was doing a Cena and kicking out of two at everything.
Yeah. I love the Brood thing with Edge was pretty awesome. The Brood shit, that was fun. Those were fun, right? But look, they gave the belt back to Charlotte. They kind of squashed Nikki's little bullshit. They gave the belt to Damian Priest. Okay, that was okay, but beating fucking Sheamus in 2021, dude. Drew is officially a mid-carder now, just like I said he was.
Yeah, terrible match.
What's he doing now? What did he do at SummerSlam? I can't remember.
Jinder. He beat Jinder clean. I mean, what? Like in the mid-card? Like, is that really?
I think it was like a 6-minute match or something as well.
It was very short match, by the way.
Yeah.
Very short match.
Jinder got squashed in 6 minutes.
Big match,
they built
Jinder.
all that up. Yeah, they built that all up for Jinder. But it's just like, they knew going in that the Brock thing was going to be the oh fuck moment, and the Becky thing was going to be the Jesus Christ, coming, walk on the water moment. Matches wise, like I said, those two matches. But look at those two matches, right? Seth has decent matches to good matches. Seth, the character's just all over the place. It's a mess. Edge has been around. Edge has a fused neck. Cena is kind of semi-retired, and Roman, this is probably the best. We're getting the best Roman Reigns in 2020 to 2021. This is the best we've ever got.
I think we've only got Roman for another 2 years tops.
I did too. Yeah,
he's in Hollywood. He's out.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
What are the
TV show? I smell a TV deal or something like that.
Who are they building to take over his spot? Because
Brock Lesnar, and Bill Goldberg apparently.
I don't even think it's just the best Roman Reigns we've ever had. I think it's one of the best main event talents we've had in the last decade. I can't think of anybody who is coming close to.
But as soon as this is over, this
there's nowhere to go.
He's
gone. Nowhere to go.
There's
nowhere to go.
He's out of wrestling.
It's great. I'm eating my own words because I thought 2 years ago I was like, Roman is just trash. There's just no reason to work this anymore. Gave him Heyman, turned him heel, changed everything forever, right? It just changed it forever, and he's at the top of his game and he's carrying that brand on Fridays on his back. But now we're supposed to have Brock. Is Brock going to cut promos as a baby face?
You know what I loved when babyface Lesnar came out? It's the first time I've ever seen him do it. He was working the crowd. He was like hyping.
Yeah, he was high five. Yeah, the first time people said he touched the crowd.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
I don't know that he's ever done it. I think he did it in UFC, but I don't know that he's ever done it.
I've never seen him do it in wrestling. Yeah, never.
I mean, look, obviously the elephant in the room circumstance, which I'm getting a lot of attention for talking about, which I had no idea like my tweet was going to be that big, but was the Becky thing. Because one thing I don't see a lot of, it's funny, the Becky thing's tricky, okay, because the Becky thing now exists in the context of what they did to Bianca, right, which is not fair to either one of them. It's not. But I said that they would probably slit an infant's throat on Christmas morning on television if it meant making Becky and Charlotte, convincing you that Becky and Charlotte are superhumans and bigger than the industry. Giving the belt back to Charlotte, Jesus Christ. I mean, Jesus Christ. Again, and then at the same token, having Becky, honky tonk man, Bianca Belair like that, and just suck the life out of everything they built up for her. People were not happy. Like, people are having a tough time separating the Becky coming back to what they did with Bianca. Like, those two things shouldn't have existed. They should have been separate things, right? I didn't know Sasha. Apparently they knew Sasha wasn't going to wrestle like a week before. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah. They knew, about 8 days before, but they still continued to. I think I heard that on Solid Monster actually.
So Sasha wasn't cleared, even though they were still promoting the match.
Yeah. Blatant false advertising.
That's kind.
Real kind.
And don't forget, not that I give a shit about Carmella, but don't forget what they did to her too. I mean, it was just like, I'll give you for instance, Ruby Riott. Ruby Riott now made some weird video where she's like making like a music video or something and calling herself Ruby Soho or whatever. And it's like, I remember a bunch of years ago before Ruby got hurt, Ruby was getting kind of hot. Like, the Riot Squad was getting kind of hot. And I remember saying, I think on the Soup, and I was like, none of this really matters. Or maybe Joey said, it's like, it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, if it's not Becky or Charlotte, they don't care.
They don't give a shit.
Yeah. And look how long it took them to even care about Becky. Look at the hoop she had
to go
through, and
she had to break her face.
Yeah, she did. And
literally,
before then it was just Charlotte that wanted, but luckily Becky carved out a space for herself.
Yeah.
I don't think any other female wrestlers get that luxury.
No, and Natty will, because of who she is to some extent. Like, she'll have a job forever, and maybe a couple of other people they like having, but they. Like, to me, the Becky thing, and I feel like we talked about this on the Soup a lot, but it's kind of smoke and mirrors. You could acknowledge that Becky is very popular and she's one of the more popular women in the business and that she's a good champ and she does a good job without drinking the Kool-Aid and going, Becky Lynch is so famous, she probably can't walk down my street because everyone will know who she is. Because that's what they want. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
So it's not enough to just be, hey, I'm a really popular wrestler and I'm very famous in my industry, but that's it. That's where the buck stops. You know what I'm saying? And but the idea is like, oh no, Becky and Charlotte are pioneers. They transcend the business. Like, everybody in America knows who they are, and they don't. And the problem is, they do steps, they take steps and sacrifice other women and other people, well, women specifically, to make them look like that. Bianca is a superior athlete on the highest level. Bianca has a athletic pedigree that outshines Becky's buggy whip arms and Charlotte's, face of the month. And Charlotte's an athlete too. I'm not saying Charlotte's not an athlete. I'm not saying Becky's not. But I'm saying Bianca is an accomplished athlete, a high level athlete. High level. She's got her college athleticism and her physicality. Like, she's amazing. She's really great. I don't particularly like her as a babyface personally. I think if you're going to call yourself the EST, the best, or whatever, you should be a bad guy. Because if you're really a babyface, you don't think you're the best. You other people tell you you're the
Well, they're
best.
talking about turning Becky Lynch heel, making her the top heel. I think they should maybe go with the other way around and have,
Bianca. Bianca be bitter, but Bianca has every right to be upset. And I saw people being and look, there's definitely a racial component to it. It's impossible to ignore. It's impossible to ignore because that's how people feel. If there are WWE fans who are black who have waited a long time for this time period to see a lot of black athletes, and they've been pushing them for sure, and they've definitely done a better job than they have in my lifetime of pushing black athletes. Get Bianca get chumped out like that.
You
mean,
like Kofi Kingston did as well.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So
well, but the thing is, like Brock. You talk about the Brock Kofi thing.
Yeah, I still feel like he got chumped out way too quick after.
Yeah, but that was more to push Brock. But there's also a physicality there where Brock is 6 times the size of Kofi and 5 times wider. You know what I mean? So it's a little different. Becky. I don't dislike Becky at all. Becky looked unathletic. I don't know if I'm saying that properly. She looked thin. She looked like maybe. I'm sure
she's been gone a year. She's been gone a year and a half, and
she's gone a year. She's got an infant. She got an infant. She's breastfeeding. She's
champion.
She's not in the gym killing herself. Maybe she is, but she looked thin to me. She looked different. Looks like they had to give her a wig. I don't know if anybody else said this, but I thought they gave her a wig actually, because I don't know if she could still dye her hair. I couldn't tell. I mean, I don't know. I'm just speculating these things, but I'm just saying Bianca, looks like, a Greek statue, has been constantly in this game, is a little bit, if not a lot younger, I think, than Becky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to just get chumped out with a cheap little move like that, after we've watched her have these marathon matches and body press people, Bianca could wrestle dudes. Look at the shape she's in. She's superior. So like, why did Bianca have to fall at the feet? Like, you could have got Becky over without hurting Bianca, but they don't look at it that way. They look at it like everyone falls.
Yeah.
Because Becky is back. All of you fall down now. Everybody falls down. You're all going to fall down, and you're going to have to look weak. There's a way of making someone look strong without making the other person look weak. In wrestling, that's hard, but it happens.
It's like WWE has to make a sacrifice to the gods every time somebody comes back. Oh, right, well, if we want Becky to get a pop, we're going to have to sacrifice somebody. And Bianca was that person. And you can do both things. You can bring someone back and keep the person that they beat strong. But they don't care.
But Cam, they don't have to. I'm sorry, Rose.
Yeah.
But they don't. But the problem is they don't have to, because they that would require work. Do you really think Darby Allin is going to lose in 30 seconds to CM Punk?
No, they're going to have a very long competitive match.
Yeah.
If anything, Darby should be almost beating the guy because he's been out for so long.
Do you think it's a squash match? Do you think it's going to be a squash match?
No.
Why? Of course not.
I don't think Punk would let it be a squash match.
No.
Of course. Of course not. Because he like for example, like Roman. When Roman became the chief, the head of the table sort of character, he wasn't squashing guys. He was beating them. Nobody looks like say Cena's sticking around. Nobody looks weak for losing to Roman. Yeah. Right? If anything, you want them to beat Roman, but they're probably not going to, because it's not a squash. He's not. Brock was squashing guys because he was lazy, and they probably had to pay him by the second to be in the ring or something. You know what I'm saying? Like Roman is at least invested in this. Like, Cena looked great against Roman. He looked good. He didn't look like a guy who hasn't been wrestling. You know what I mean? Even like Daniel Bryan, when they had that feud with Roman to help elevate that, whatever. Like, there's a way to do it. They don't have to do it, because in their mind, they're like, Becky's a household name. Becky's a superstar. Becky's one of the top people in the world. It's like, in your business.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people recognizing her at the airport, but it's not like they're recognizing, some girl from The Office or something, from This Is Us or something like that from the airport. WWE wants you to think that Becky and Charlotte are known universally in the sports world and the entertainment world and comedy and drama and college, and they're not.
No.
They're not. No. So the justification is weak, and the execution is weak. If you're approaching this as you know, like I told you guys, right? Like I'm on stage with CM Punk at a big hardcore show in New York, and nobody's mobbing. Dude, there's tons of people in hardcore like wrestling, like a zillion, but nobody's mobbing him. It's not that kind of an environment, you know. And I probably walked past him 15 times and I didn't know who the fuck he was. And been watching wrestling since 1978. So it's just like, but out of the context of that world, he just kind of blends in as a person, you know. And like, you know, to me, it's not really. It's a bad strategy. It's a bad strategy to say that Becky is so big and Charlotte are so big that everything we do is to the benefit, is to make people believe it's smoke and mirrors. It's a fantasy, you know, because WWE wants you to think that their performers are bigger than life and bigger than they are. And they're not. It's a marginalized popularity. It doesn't mean it's not popular. You know, like you should be able to respect Becky's career and like her as a performer and not recognize that she could possibly go to Costco in your small town and maybe a couple people might recognize her, but most people probably won't know who she is.
Probably wouldn't. No, definitely not here.
Now, I'm upstate New York. I don't think people would recognize
Really?
Becky Lynch. I don't think so. I Punk, absolutely not. I can tell you that. Charlotte and Becky, nah. My brother Mike, a couple years ago, he works for Time Warner, and he was at a convention. And part of the convention is they send celebrity type people. And Mike was at the booth with Charlotte, and he got autographed from me and my brother Kevin. And I said, was there a lot of people there talking to her? He's like, no, not really. Because this is a media. There's the guy from Walking Dead is here. Why am I going to talk to this girl?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just, to me, it's more of WWE wanting you to think that their product is bigger than it is. And the fans staunchly going, yeah. Like, you know, but it's interesting. Did you guys expect the blowback for the Bianca thing? Or did you think Becky's fans would just squash it?
Bit of both, to be honest. I expected the backlash because of how it happened. I think people like Bianca enough to be a bit angry about it.
Mm.
But I also expected that Becky is popular enough that we might not hear too much of it in a week or so. And I think it's
and before Becky left with getting pregnant and stuff, there was she probably should have dropped the belt to Shayna Baszler and that kind of thing. So it's kind of like she's beaten people before that she probably should have kind of handed the reins to. Right. So like I think this is kind of, it's starting to feel like a bit of a Charlotte 2.0. She's just going to beat everybody, and like whoever they bring up from NXT is going to get beaten. They're going to get fed to her, or they're going to get fed to Charlotte.
You always rely on WWE to make us uninterested or not like a top babyface.
Yeah, like Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley should have been like the biggest thing going, really, coming out of NXT.
I've been saying that for years.
But now I couldn't give a shit because
she's damaged. Yeah, it's damaging. I like now, like 2 years ago, I would have been all over this, and now I'm like, doesn't matter. She's not going to win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, I mean, they still do a better version of, say, like AEW in terms of how they handle their women, but they've also had more experience doing it. So I think that to be fair, I think that's a fair. You know, Kenny Omega should not be running a women's division of wrestling on television. That's absurd. I don't think that's still the case anymore, but that was the case for a while.
Yeah.
You know, when you have all this money and all this exposure, you could get people. Like they should have been hiring. They should have hired Mickie James to be behind the scenes running the AEW women's division.
Absolutely.
You know, these are things WWE are never going to do. And by the way, I'm going to state this again, and I know I've said this on our show, our podcast. I still think they're selling the company. I absolutely think they're selling the company.
I think
every decision they make looks like a financial decision to value to get bad debts and get bad things off the books to inflate the price of a company.
Yep.
A company's not going to tell you they're being sold. You know, they'll go, we're trying to sell, so we're going to get rid of NXT and fire all these people. No, that's not how life works. It's like, of course we're not selling. They have shareholders. They got to keep the stock. People got to buy the stock and sell the stock every day. So, you know, I still think they're selling the company. I 100% think they're selling the company. Could take a year from now. I think that's why Tony Khan, not Tony Khan.
I always
Nick Khan. I know it's hard. I know. Well, the same last name. I think that's Nick Khan was brought in to do that. I think he was brought in to put a financial face on a company that's permeated with carny workers like Triple H and Stephanie.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, so this way, when you get this guy, and notice this guy is this guy's basically Vince right now.
Yeah.
You know, you got the Crypt Keeper on steroids, fucking Vince in the back, fucking this shit up for everybody, and you got his kids, everybody scrambling to get $1. You know, a year from now, I honestly think it's going to be owned by Universal. I think Universal or like Peacock is going to own it, or a version of Peacock, or Time Warner can't own it because they own AEW. But I think that's why they're on the network. I mean, you know, they didn't need to sell. They didn't need the bill. I mean, like, you know, they don't need it. It's not like they were dying. They were doing great. They had their own network. They're full profit. You know,
it's getting sold. It's getting
sold.
It's getting sold. And before I forget, we've got 3 minutes left of this current recording. So, is there anything you really want to get off your chest about SummerSlam?
It was better than I thought it was going to be, but I really feel like the signature pay-per-views have to be stronger. You know, that's a signature pay-per-view, and it wasn't strong enough to.
They should be blowing our minds. The big four should be absolutely blowing.
Right, the big four, exactly. Yeah, the big four. You have to protect the big four. Yeah. You have to. And COVID is still in the background. I'll give it the COVID excuse for a little bit. But then I saw all these people, and I'm like, well, no, that's not really an excuse. There's 60,000 people here. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But yeah, I wish the big four was still the big four rather than a good episode of Raw. That's how
exactly. It should be. We should be still talking about this pay-per-view in 10 years. Go, no, do you remember SummerSlam 21?
Let alone 5 days.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I remember results from pay-per-views that were 30 years ago.
Sure, so do I.
You talk about Bret Hart nailing Taker with the chair. I remember that like it was yesterday. I can't tell you. I can't even remember some of the matches from SummerSlam the other night. Never mind, like pay-per-views from, you know.
Me too. But it could be the edibles. I don't know. It could be the edibles.
Yeah, well, it could be. It could be that one marijuana. All right. Well, yeah, we've got 2 minutes left. So should we wrap up then? And
John, tell us where we can find you and all of your projects. I know you're a busy man.
Yes, so we got Break the Apocalypse. We're going to be celebrating our year anniversary. We're coming up on our year anniversary in September. You can find us on all platforms there. We have a Patreon level where we do Q&A shows, and we have the full bonus shows. The Patreon, all that stuff comes out on Fridays for the free platforms. And then if you are so inclined, you can go to Spotify or Apple, or you can go to Bandcamp and type in Synthetic 16, spell out the 16. My album Too Far Along from 2003 just became available this spring. And I'm going to be performing in Brooklyn on the 16th, one night only, celebrating that fact. And then I'm retiring. So that'll be the end of it. So, but spell that out. You can check it out. It's available on those platforms. Someone's got to listen to it. So it might as well be you guys.
Well, I'll put all the links in the description if you send them to us, John. And I can't wait to speak to you again. I'm sorry I dodged you for a few episodes, but it's been a delight to speak to you again.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Love having you on, John. It's always great.
I appreciate it. And thank you guys for supporting the show. You know, we're always plugging you guys away and letting you guys know what's up. And let's circle back in another 4 or 5 months and see if any of this stuff came true. I think that's a good idea.
Let's circle back for Survivor Series.
Perfect. Absolutely. Makes sense to me. I'm happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Cheers, John.